Hello, welcome to the Flying Bible as we continue the journeys of Jesus. We are up around the Sea of Galilee, taking off from a little airport right around the town of Chorazin. The plane we are in is called the Icon A5. When Jesus came up here and started his ministry up in Galilee after walking back up from the desert, after he'd been baptized, he'd spent 40 days in the desert, then journeyed up here and began his ministry. He was doing healings, he was teaching, and some of these places didn't accept him. Some of these places didn't repent, as the narratives described, and so he gave warnings to places like Chorazin and Bethsaida. There are no stories of Jesus doing his miracles, healings, teachings in the town of Chorazin, much like the many other towns around here, but there is one point when it talks about how Jesus had done a majority of his powers around places like Chorazin and Bethsaida. These were towns that rejected him. Bethsaida is actually where we're headed right now. This is one of the places that is disputed in its exact location. There's also another place that could have been another Bethsaida theoretically, but this site over here makes the most sense to me and seems to be the place that we're talking about, of where Jesus did his healings that Mark describes, and a few of the Gospels describe Andrew and Peter being from this place called Bethsaida. So this is their hometown, and also the hometown of Philip, as the Gospel of John describes. So being over here, this is right on the northern end of the Sea of Galilee, where the Jordan River heads north out of it. And this is a spot really close to it on the east side of the Jordan River. These guys were fishermen. They were all over the sea, and they were in Capernaum a lot. And so on our route today, we are going to head over a way that they probably would have gone over towards Capernaum. They would have taken the way by the sea. They wouldn't have walked over there because they would have been using their boats. I would imagine they're fishermen, and it would have been a much easier journey to just go across the water, as Jesus did multiple times. And crossing the water didn't always mean going to the east-west side or north-south side of it. Sometimes it was just a little short way across the water, like we're doing right now, heading on to Capernaum. By the way, if you'd like a better look at that map, or any of the maps that we've been showing and will show throughout these Flying Bible episodes, just follow a link below in the description. It's a link to a page on our church website where we're posting these maps, and you are more than invited to go find them there. Capernaum is around in this location. Again, some of these sites are disputed. This is a place where they found the archaeological evidence. There's not a modern town over it these days, but there is a church right over a little portion of the old city, a house that they think may have been Peter's house and was a place of worship for Christians. And so they built a church over it. It's absolutely beautiful. It has glass bottom so you can see into it. There was this great synagogue there, and this synagogue was built on top of an older synagogue underneath. A whole lot of history with people of the faith around here. And then you come around here on the northwestern edge of the Sea of Galilee. Along this line, you find a few towns. Right now, we're heading on the way over here toward Gennesaret. And in these days, this place is called Tabgha. It's traditionally understood to be the site of healings and Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Right now we are flying up to the Mount of Beatitudes. At least I think it's the Mount of Beatitudes as far as I can tell in the simulator, but you would expect it to be this great mountain of great height, but it's really just one of the big hills around here. And as you think about like the feeding of the 5,000, this is understood to be a traditional spot for Jesus feeding the 5,000. And to have 5,000 men up there, as it describes, it's going to need a lot of space. And it's only counting the men. You know that there's also going to be the women with them, and there's going to be the children, so at least 10, 15,000 people we're talking about. So that actually makes a lot more sense to be a Sermon on the Mount spot, feeding, the miracle feeding spot, because there's more room to have people up there. Now again, if some of these spots are disputed, traditionally understood to be the spots, and we're in the simulator, so it's kind of hard to precisely point at these spots. Not all of them have modern towns living over them. And if you look at the sea level also, the sea level has been dropping. Even within our lifetime, the sea level has been dropping because of how much water is used. And that's actually an issue that they're working very hard to address. They're doing a lot of desalinization over there with the Mediterranean Sea and making fresh water out of it. Now that mountain that we're passing right now, when we think about Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, we picture a mountain like that. And what you're seeing here is right by Magdala. When we talk about Mary Magdalene, what we're saying is Mary of Magdala. And this is a place with a lot of ancient archaeological finds that you can go visit today. It's right by that mountain. It's right by its cliffs. Very beautiful cliffs. And right before you come into the city of Tiberias. Tiberias, we don't have any stories of Jesus doing healings or teaching specifically in Tiberias, but it's a safe bet to think that he was here. This was actually the Roman capital of the Sea of Galilee. This is where Herod Antipas made a city in the year 20, and that was well before Jesus began his ministry. It's a safe bet to think that Jesus has been all over this sea to all of these towns. It mentions him going to towns and not giving the names of those towns. And now we're going to take a trip across the water, much like Jesus, done many, many times, as it's talked about. These beautiful views of the hills, even though we're at a higher altitude here than we were down south where the Jordan River goes into the Dead Sea, this is still lower than surrounding areas. So you've got these beautiful green hills all around. And now we're crossing over to the other side, somewhere around the area of the Gerasenes. There is a traditional exact spot where they say that Jesus performed that miracle of exorcising the demons out of the guy and sending them into the pigs and them running down a steep cliff. So we are going to climb one of these hills. Oh man, we're running it a little bit close. We better put down our landing gear just in case, because I don't think we're going to make it quite. Okay, good thing we put down that landing gear. Now we're just going to bring it on around and get going down the hill again so we can get enough speed to get back up in the air. And there we go. Now we got more speed. We're going to get back up this hill. And on around here, we're getting into the Golan Heights. And there are still places up there today. Israel goes a little while north yet. But we're going to come back on around here. It looks like a nice hill right there. Maybe that is where Jesus drove those demons, legion, out of the man and into the pigs. So we are coming right upon the edge to where it gets real steep real quick, and we're going to go down just like that swine did. A couple thousand of them flocking down this hill and into the ocean. Okay, we're getting a little bit too fast. We're going to pull back up. We're not going all the way down that hill. If we get into the red in our speedometer, then this plane's going to fall apart, and it's not going to go so well for us. Alright, well, we got the speed back down, so let's drop the altitude and go down there. So just as those pigs ran into the sea, just as Jesus crossed the sea and his disciples crossed the sea multiple times, we're going to go out here into the water again. And by the way, we've got a seaplane right now. You may have noticed that it looks a little funny compared to planes that we're typically flying. This is a mighty fun one. Because being a seaplane and on the Sea of Galilee, we're going to go ahead and land out here in the sea. There were a couple times that Jesus' disciples were out here in the middle of the water. One was in the evening, one was way early in the morning, so of course we're kind of in the middle of the day here, but we're going out here. There's a lot of clouds in the sky. You never know how the weather can turn on you at any moment. And then all of a sudden, a great windstorm came upon the disciples. Now, this happened a couple times. One time was when Jesus came out walking to them across the water. He invited Peter to step out in the water, and Peter started sinking. Jesus held out his hand, lifted him up from out of the depths. Another time Jesus was with his disciples, and they were headed out across the sea. Jesus was tired from doing all this work that he'd been doing, and he was asleep, knocked out on the cushion. Great windstorm came upon them real quick, and they were freaking out. Like, aren't you going to do anything? You're going to die out here. Jesus wakes up. He says, "Peace, be still." And the sea was still. Weather went back to normal. Everything was okay again. Jesus asked the question, "Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith?" Well, thank you all. Join me again. See you next time as we head out with Jesus on vacation to Tyre and Sidon. The Flying Bible. And God bless you.